everyone, and welcome to the July 2019 update of the Power BI desktop. As always, we have lots of exciting features to cover this month, and we'll start with the reporting features. Our first feature is one that we demoed at our big announcement session at the Microsoft Business Application Summit. So this is our first feature we're shipping from that. And it's also addressing the number one idea on ideas.powerbi.com. which is icon sets for table and matrix. This is a new form of conditional formatting. It's the last of the set of conditional formatting types that Excel supports, which we also want to support. So now whenever you go into the formatting pane and into the conditional formatting card, you'll see an icons option, and whenever you turn that on, it will add icons to your table or matrix. From there, you can use the Advanced Controls option to open the dialog and customize it. This experience is very similar to the rules experience you had for the background color and font color. It's very similar, other than the fact that you have an icon picker instead of a color picker. The first two options you have is to be able to pick which field from your model that you want to format based on. By default, it will be the measure that you were using in your table or matrix. And you can also, if it's a numeric column and not a measure, you can also choose the summarization type. Underneath that, you have two options in terms of the icon layout. The first is which position do you want the icon to be in? Do you want it to be to the left of the data, which is default? You can also do it to the right of the numbers. Or you can choose to do icon only and not have the numbers show at all in your table or matrix. You can also choose the alignment you want to see for the icons. This will be important if you have column header or row headers that word wrap, and therefore the icon's not going to fill the entire cell. You can choose to align it to the top of the cell, the middle, or the bottom. The bottom section is the rules section, and this is by default. You'll see there are three rules that format the bottom third of the range of your data with a red diamond, the middle third of the range of your data with the yellow triangle, and the upper third of the range of your data with a green circle. And you can reorder these rules. You can change the icons that you want to use within these rules to any of the set of icons that we support. And you can also add new rules as well, so you can make as complex of logic as you need to meet your business scenarios. And once you're done customizing, I'll just make a couple of tweaks just so you can see it. Once you're done customizing, you can hit OK, and your updates will be applied to your matrix. You can also reach the conditional formatting dialog from the field wells as well, just like all the other forms. You can do it through the context menu of any of the values, and when you click on icons, it will pop open the same dialog. Another option you have for conditional formatting for icons is you can format by a field value as well. So you'll be able to pick a field in your model that is returning different icons, like this measure I have, and you can choose, of course, the layout and the alignment as well in this form. And whenever you hit OK, it will apply the logic of that measure. And if we go and we look at the measure so you can see what it looks like, you'll see that I'm using a switch statement, and I'm defining what to use in a couple of different ways. I'm first saying that if anything is less than 200, I want to use an SVG, and you can see here the format of that SVG, and you can define any SVG here, or you could even base 64 encode, say a PNG, and paste that in here as well. Next up, if it was less than 1,000, I'm referencing a specific icon from the set that we have in our icon picker. All of the icons in that set have some ID for them, and you can reference it. In this case, star medium light is this half filled star with yellow. And then lastly, I'm saying everything else is a GIF that I'm pointing to that exists online. You can also update icons using a theme file. The theme file section would look something like this. We're adding a new section called icons, and this will show it in line with, along with like the data colors, setting the conditional formatting colors, all of the stuff that shows above the visual styles in line with the name. You can have an icon section, and in there you can define your theme for either new icons like this fire icon and this explosion icon, or you can update the current icons we have. So star, medium, light, again, you can change what that icon actually looks like in the drop-down. For each of the icons, there are two sections. One, you have to give it a unique ID, so fire, explosion, or one of the existing IDs that we defined, like star, medium, light. And then under that, the URL will be what you're going to replace it with. In this case, I used all web GIFs or images, but again, in this section right here, you could have put a SVG, you could have put an image that you got the base64 encoding for. And then there's a description, which will be read off by the screen reader as someone is navigating over the icons. If we go back to the report and switch the theme, you actually see, because I was using the star, medium, light, you'll see that the new icon that I defined in the theme is automatically applied. And if I go and open up the dialog and switch back to rules real quick, you'll see in the icon picker, at the end we added the other two icons in addition to replacing the star, medium, light with the other icon. So hopefully you can come up with some really cool ways to take advantage of this new form of conditional formatting, and let us know what other KPI-like features you would expect to see in this area as well. Also this month, we've improved the conditional formatting by rules dialog for font and background color. Just like for icon sets, you'll also be able to define rules using % of the range of your data. So you've already seen that icon sets support % range of your data. But if you open up the conditional formatting dialog for either background color or font color, you also see when you switch over to the rules dialog that you also have access to the % dropdown. So for both dropdowns for the default rule and any of your rules, you can mix and match both number and %. And for %, what we mean by that is basically the range of your data. So 0% is the minimum number of your data, 100% is the maximum, and we divide up that range into, each percentage section, and if your data falls within that range, it will apply the color of the rule. So for example, if I had data ranging between 1 and 100, and my rule was 0 to 33%, anything between 1 and 33 would be colored red, because that's the lower third of the range of my data. And so for both font color, background color, and also the new icon sets, you're able to mix and match % and numbers to be able to come up with the optimal rules for your data. Next on our list this month is our new Filter Pane is now generally available. So if you've been following along, we've been making a ton of updates every single month to our new Filter Pane, and we now feel like it's in a very good state where it has a ton of benefits over the old Filter Pane, and there's not really any gaps anymore that exist between the two versions. So we're making the new Filter Pane generally available, and it will be on by default for any new reports you make. We're not changing your existing reports yet. You'll still need to go and manually upgrade any existing reports you have to the new Filter Pane, but anytime you create a new report, you'll get all the great benefits automatically. One other small change we made this month around the filter pane is that we heard feedback that users didn't like the filter pane scaling with the report, so we turned that feature off. The filter pane text will no longer scale in correspondence with the report page scaling. Fourth, under reporting, is that we now support data colors when you're using a play axis on your scatter charts. So for example, I have a play axis here where I have class as my legend for my play axis. And up until this month, I had no way of actually customizing these colors in the legend using the formatting pane. This whole data colors card was just hidden if I had any field in the play axis bucket of the field well. Obviously that was a gap for this visual, and so we've now closed that gap, and you can go and customize the colors that you want to use in your play axis. And it works, of course, just like the data colors card anywhere else within Power BI. So that's just one more visuals gap that's now been closed. Last, under reporting, is some performance improvements whenever you're using our relative date or drop-down slicers. We've made some changes to how these two visuals load. The relative date slicer will now never run queries whenever you're loading your report page. They used to run queries. Now they don't, since that wasn't very optimal, since the relative date slicer doesn't actually show any of your data. We don't need to run any queries for it whenever it's loading. And the drop-down slicer now only loads queries when you actually expand the drop-down. So when your report first loads, up until now, the drop-downs, if you had a lot of drop-down slicers, each one would run the query to show all the items that would potentially show in that drop-down if you opened it. We no longer do that. We actually wait for you to request to open the drop-down slicer to run the query to get the items. The benefit of this is that you'll see that if you're using slicers, especially if you're using a lot of them on one page, you should see your report page load much faster. Do be aware though with the drop-down slicer, since we're running the queries on open, if you have a ton of options and your source is slow, you might see a slight lag on open, but overall you should see a ton of performance benefits, considering you're not going to have to run queries every time any filter or cross-highlight or load action occurs. Our next section is analytics, and the first feature is an update to our key influencers visual. We now let you see the counts for each of the influencers on the visual itself. Being able to see the counts is really helpful because it will let you understand for each of the influencers you have how much of your data is actually represented by that influencer. You can turn on counts in the formatting pane. In the analysis card, it will be the last option called enabled counts, and when you turn it on, you'll see a ring around each of the influencers, and the longer the ring, the more it loops around the whole circle, the more data that influencer is actually representing. This is helpful because it lets you be able to focus on the influencers that matter most. For example, our Fabricon brand is the second highest influencer, but the third influencer, if our product is a home appliance, is, well, third, pretty close, and actually impacts significantly more data. So maybe we should focus on that one over the Fabricon, just because it will make much more of a difference if we're focusing on those products, because there's more of them. Two other things you can do around counts. The first is you can actually sort by the count as well as the impact. So you can use this UI at the bottom left of the visual to switch between sorting by impact and count. And lastly, you can actually switch from having an absolute count to doing a relative count to the influencer that is the maximum of all of the influencers you currently have. We have two updates around aggregations this month as well. The first is that aggregations are now generally available, so you no longer need to turn on a preview switch to take advantage of this really great feature. And the second is that RLS is now supported for aggregation models. So you'll be able to use both aggregations and RLS in the same model. Under visualization, there are 4 updates this month. The first is that the Powerapps Visual, which is the marketplace visual that lets you actually embed Power Apps that you build into your reports so that users can take action on their reports without having to go anywhere else. This visual is now certified, which means that it will actually show up whenever you say export to PowerPoint or set up a subscription for your report, which is a really nice benefit. You no longer have that hole in your report where the Powerapps Visual was. The next marketplace visual is the info card visual, and this visual is basically a really fancy card. Switching over to their sample report that you can get from AppSource, you'll see a lot of examples of different cards that have been set up with a lot of different formatting capabilities. You can control your fill, you can have custom borders like this white border here versus this green border. You control the curve of the border if there is one. You can do conditional formatting on the borders. You can even have images and icons like this triangle showing up. You can have gradient fills, you can rotate your category labels. Basically, you have full control over every aspect of this card visual, which makes it a very powerful visual if you need a card that has a lot of custom formatting. If that's the case, you can check out this visual and play with all of the various formatting capabilities that it has. Next up is the Sunburst Visual by MAQ Software. A sunburst is very similar to a donut chart, but it has concentric rings to show the hierarchy of your data. Again, switching over to the sample that you can find on AppSource, you'll see that this is the Sunburst Visual, and the inner ring is the main category that you are looking into, and then each of the rings outside of that is breaking down those inner rings by the next level of the hierarchy. This visual has a lot of really nice interactions to help you be able to explore those hierarchies as well. For example, if I really want to explore this yellow governance category, it's really hard because it is a relatively small sliver of my data, but I can just click on it, and that section of the visual is expanded, and I can see the breakdown for that category specifically. And then I can continue to click on the various subcategories to continue to do that drilling in of the visual. And then when I want to go back out, I can click on the center circle to move back up within the hierarchy. Of course, there are formatting capabilities that come along with this visual. You can, for example, turn off the animations. You can control the data labels and the detailed labels as well. You can turn on and off the legend, control the data colors, and basically take advantage of all of the great features that you would expect from a visual. The Sunburst Visual also supports a lot of the great native Power BI features like tooltip pages and even things like drill-through pages you can do for the Sunburst Visual. Lastly, we have the Flying Brick Visual, which is a new visual in our marketplace for showing a waterfall chart. The Flying Brick Visual takes a specific format that's pretty simple and will quickly and easily create a waterfall chart for you off of that data. So you see there are 4 components to the visual. You have the period, which is your time, the categories that you want to show as the various columns and steps between the columns, the actual number value to represent the height of each of the different segments, and then a description for each of those categories as well. And so as long as you have those 4 things, it should be really easy for you to just input them into this visual and get a waterfall chart out of it. The unique thing to know about this visual is that for each of the columns, in this case the 2019 budget, the 2020 and 2021 budget, the category name for those, so that the visual knows to use them as those columns between each of the steps, it needs to be called pedestal within your category, the field you're going to put in the category bucket. and then it will pick up the description for what to label it on the x-axis. Under their tips and hints page, you'll see a description of each of these as well, along with a visual to help make it clear what's the pedestals versus the bricks, and they even have a YouTube video you can watch to help you set up this visual the first time. Under data connectivity, we have 2 new connectors this month. The first is a beta connector that will allow you to easily import your data from Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, which is a highly scalable and cost-effective data lake solution for big data analytics. It combines the power of a high-performance file system with massive scale and economy to help you accelerate your time to insights. Data Lake Storage Gen 2 extends Azure Blob storage capabilities and is optimized for analytic workloads. It is pretty much the most comprehensive data lake available. And you'll be able to use this connector under the Get Data dialog in the Azure category. The second connector is to Dynamics 365 Customer Insights. We're really excited to announce that this connector is going to be included in this month's release, and it helps you to unify your data across sources to get a single view of customers, optimize engagements, and discover insights that drive to personalized experiences. For our second connector, we are really happy to announce that we have made a Dynamics 365 Customer Insights connector available with this month's release. Dynamics 365 Customer Insights helps you to unify your data across different sources to get a single view of your customers, optimize engagements, and also discover insights that drive personalized experiences. Customer Insights shorten the time to value with a ready-to-go customer data platform that empowers marketing, sales, and service professionals to tailor digital and one-on-one interactions at scale. And you'll be able to find the connector to this under the Get Data dialog in the Online Services category. Lastly, under Data Preparation, we have a new transformation this month in the Power Query Editor, which is the ability to split columns by positions. So if you're in the Power Query Editor and you have a column selected, you can choose the Split by Column option from the Home ribbon, and you'll see you have a new option this month, which is by positions. And this allows you to split by the actual position of characters within the column. So when you click on it, it will give you a suggestion of what to do. So in my case, it suggested 0, 2, and 8 as the character positions to split on. And of course, there's also the advanced options where you can choose to split into columns or rows. I'm just going to take the default to show this example. And when I hit OK, you'll see that there is 3 different columns created for me. The first one started at position 0. The second one started at position 2. And the last one at position 8. And it's that easy. So that's all our features this month. Be sure to let us know what you think in the comments below.